I'm your host Jordan here with my co-host Billy. Buddy, we're going to talk a little bit about the playoff rankings because it's getting down to the point of the year where we got to start worrying about them. And after we didn't handle our business this weekend, we really got to worry about them. So let's see what we got here. Starting off with top four pretty much stayed the same: Oregon, Ohio State, Texas, and Penn State. Uh, they do have Boise in the in a first round bye situation, which that's interesting to me. Uh, I don't. I'm not sold on Boise State. I'm just not.
Well, I know why it's there, man. Like it's like they're setting it up to do anything to keep us out, man. I'm telling you, it's perfect. But if they was to market that perfect, you know, a good matchup between the two running backs would be perfect.
That would be fantastic.
It's Tennessee, and but they don't want to see that because we would shut that running back down.
Oh, we would destroy our run defense would own Genty. Um, they've got that's your first round buys right there. Oregon, Miami, Texas, Boise State. All your top four seeds, first round bye. You've got first round games. Ohio State, BYU. BYU is in as the 12 seed. Ohio State as the 5 seed. I'm not sure about that one, but Ohio State would probably wreck them, I think.
Yeah, they will. That wouldn't be even be a game, I don't think.
Let's see here. Then we've got Alabama and Notre Dame as the 8 and 9 matchup. The Golden Domers versus the Mobile Homers, baby.
That would probably end up being a pretty good game, man. I mean, of course, everyone knows the key to beating Alabama is slowing the QB down. If you can slow him down, you got Bama.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And then on the bottom part of that bracket, we've got Georgia as the 11 seed, Penn State as the 6th seed. I think that could be an interesting game too. But I also think I could see Georgia going up there and just wrecking shop because Penn State's not playing anybody this year other than Ohio State.
This is the time where Georgia shines, man. They've gotten lucky to be where they're at with 2 losses, and of course, I've continued to say, man, I just don't believe 2 lost teams should be in this thing. But that's the new world of college football.
Absolutely, man. And there's so dang many of them right now. I mean, we're about to talk about another one right here. Ole Miss going to Indiana as the 10-7 matchup. That's where man, I'm not sold on Ole Miss making it. I'm not sold on Ole Miss making it. I'm not sold on it. I'm not sold on either of those two teams making it. To be honest with you,
I, I'm an Indiana believer, man. I watched them play 2 games, and each one of those games I watched them, and they've been pretty dominant in a sense, and especially at offense, man. I mean, you're talking about a fun offense to watch. Man, I would love to have that offense right here now.
that's true. That's true.
Now, the Kiffin situation, I just know him. He'll find a way to lose that game, man. All these trick plays and stuff. You're not gonna be able to do that against a very disciplined team like Indiana right now.
That's true. So that's what the bracket looks like. Let's talk the rankings. Just the college football playoff rankings. Top 4, we know what those are. Those haven't changed. They've got Indiana at number 5, Notre Dame at 6, Bama at 7. Bama's at 7, and they're the highest ranked 2-loss team. Miami at number 8, 9-1. Mississippi, Ole Miss at number 9, 8-2. Georgia 8-2. Then Tennessee 8-2. Boise State at 9-1. SMU at 9-1, and BYU at 9-1. They have BYU in the playoffs from 14. Like, come on, what's going on here?
It's going the way I said it when they created the 12 team playoff situation. It's going to come down to who they truly want to be in there versus who should be in there. Like it's like I don't think a 2-loss team deserved to be in this situation. I get it. I mean, I love it that we still have a shot or there's teams that have a shot, or they want to guess and say that the two-loss team is one of the best teams in the country. Well, they wasn't when they lost one of those two games.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
so, like, I still believe that all these teams that have one loss or no loss, they should be above the teams that got two losses. It shouldn't be about the whole situation of they are the best team. They wasn't the best team. They wouldn't be if they lost two games.
That's true. That's true. Uh, we it sucks that we're one of those, but it's also, we're still firmly in the conversation. So it's gonna be interesting these last couple of weeks, because basically the point of our episode here today is we're going to talk about what kind of help Tennessee's going to have, and you kind of said it. There's not a whole lot out there. We just have to help ourselves,
Yeah.
more or less.
We got to first start off and do our jobs first, man. Win these next two ball games, and because it's not going to help us regardless if we win these games.
We're supposed to win them
from the guys above us, and some of it is going to be tough to happen because you got situations where you got this weekend with Ohio State and Indiana. That's a no-win situation for us because if either one of them lose, guess what? One of them have two losses and the other one have one loss.
That's true. That's true. We've got this is kind of one of what I'm kind of getting at here. I think the one thing we, outside of beating UTEP like we should, and beating Vandy, outside of that, I think, and I kind of mentioned this to you too, I think honestly I think the playoff committee thinks we're very one dimensional because our offense is not putting up 50, 60 points a game like we had been. I think if Nico is that elite of a passer, let that boy sling it 60 times a game and show them, hey, we do have a passing game. Because I mean, if they mentioned, I'm trying to think who it was, but BYU beating who did BYU beat this past weekend?
I think BYU. I thought they lost.
They lost. It was somebody. Who was it they beat? Somebody beat somebody that was in the playoffs. They were like, well, we looked at how they beat such and such and this, that, and the other. And it's like, I think we've got to change the narrative that Tennessee is a one-dimensional football team and show that we can put up points like we were doing, first of the year, this, that, and the other. I think that would go a long way in maybe helping us out. But because neither of the secondaries that we have coming up are going to stop much, I don't feel like.
Well, they're going to have their hands full this weekend, man, because we're running it downhill, down their throat. And if they end up putting 8 in the box or whatever, I mean, we got it easy. We can throw it down the field because our receivers got the shot. They got to make up for some of the ground that they missed this past few weeks.
Yeah, for sure. Outside of that, though, this is kind of the stuff that is there's no kind of to it. This is stuff that's out of our hands. I feel like Florida has got to get Ole Miss in the swamp, and I think Florida's capable of doing it. I don't necessarily think they will, but I do think that they can beat them because they've got Lagway back. They look good against LSU. They looked real good against LSU, actually. We got to have that. Ohio State needs to just dog walk Indiana. I mean, that's the only way that I think the hype train for Indiana is going to slow down any.
I'm with you there because if Indy beats Ohio State, now you're going to have that biased two-loss team that they're going to put in before us because they're going to call them a much sexy team because of their offense.
Yes, which kind of ties into that what I was saying just now. We got to look. Style points are going to matter for us these last two games. I think if we can win by 70, by God, do it.
Well, with me, like even if they did do that, let's just say Indiana beat Ohio State, they still got to take in consideration that it's too late to be losing and still think you're going to be down one of the top teams.
That's true. That's true.
But we know they won't do that. They had already put us out of the playoffs when we had one loss.
Yeah. I mean, calling that game Saturday for Tennessee an elimination game was a bit much. Like It was not to me. It's not an elimination game whenever you're playing a team that's been the top dog in the conference for the last few years, and it's just not. That's not how that should work. I don't feel like, but we talk about Kiffin with how he is. He actually made a really good point. There's going to be teams that don't want to play in the conference championship that are in the playoffs, and because they know they'll get punished for losing, even if it's close or not. And I'm telling you, I think we've had this conversation before. I think at some point it's the conference championship games are going to be done away with because of that. Because there's going to be teams that don't want to just don't want to play in it. I don't see how they could, but money talks. That being said, though, let's see here. Let me see what else we got here as far as what could help the Vols out here. We've got Indiana needs to dog walk Ohio State. We need Notre Dame to drop at least one of these next two, whether it be Army or USC. We need one of those two games to go against Notre Dame.
Notre Dame, let's see, they're independent, so it's their schedule. Well, they actually that's going to be two tough games from the past next 2 weeks, and you're talking about Army is not going to be a pushover. That offense, man, when you're able to run the ball like that, it's tough to beat a team if they're able to still run the ball on you like that.
Oh yeah.
USC is not going to be a cakewalk either. They always give Notre Dame a game, and I think USC is capable of beating them as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's two potential games right there for them to drop. But I honestly, until Notre Dame drops their sack and joins the conference, I don't think I don't feel like they should be considered. I don't know. I don't know. It's ridiculous that they get to basically schedule whoever they want to, and they're still like, well, we're the top program in the country. No, you're not. You guys suck. But next up though, Bama being ahead of us, which 2-loss team. Bama, we're a 2-loss team. There, I think it was. Oh, this is what it was. They hyped up how they beat Mercer, the mighty Mercer Bears, and I'm like, man, that's a community college. They just beat up on. Like, are you kidding me? And they're going to say, well, they beat Georgia. Okay, I get that, but we beat Bama. So what does that say? It doesn't matter. But they've got Oklahoma and Auburn left on the schedule. We need them to drop one of those two. And they're capable of dropping those two. You just never do know.
Well, I'm going to call it now. If they don't lose this weekend, I'm going to call it they will lose to Auburn.
The Ard Bowl. The Ard Bowl.
I call Auburn that they're the giant killers, man. They normally spoil someone's season every season.
Well, they should have honestly beat them last year. Just saying. Should have done it last year. BYU, we got to have them drop one. I'm not real sure who they have left on their schedule, but we got to. I do know this week they play Arizona State.
Yeah,
so
BYU, they don't have it easy either, man. It was I think it was Arizona State, and I think it was Houston. I think something like that.
Yeah. So right, and that could knock the Big 12 out of having a bid. So we'll see what happens. Longest shot though out of all of it, to me, Georgia. We do need Georgia to drop one. It ain't gonna happen this week. They play UMass this week. That's not happening. Georgia Tech though. Georgia Tech rivalry weekend. Crazy things happen. Rivalry weekend. They did beat Miami, and I mean beat Miami pretty convincingly too. So who knows, man? But like the schedule for this week for the playoff teams. Let's see here.
And see, I think that Georgia Tech game is on a Friday too. I think
it may be. Let's see here. So your playoff games this weekend, we got Indiana, Ohio State at noon, Then Miami plays Wake Forest at home. Ole Miss goes to the Swamp. SMU's a team
That's
that
tough.
people are sleeping on.
The Swamp, going to the Swamp after a big win like they just got with LSU, I can see them coming out and giving it swinging, man, because I know that crowd is going to be hostile.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's gonna. I don't think it's gonna be an easy one for them. I don't think it's gonna be an easy one for them. I'll give Billy Napier credit. He's rallied that Florida team in a big way. Because I mean, if you'd have hit us 3 weeks ago when Florida was sitting at 2-5, you just sit here. We would have been sitting here saying, okay, well, whoever wins Florida State's going to be going for 3-9. You know what I mean?
But Gators have nothing to lose, man. So now they got to come out click on all cylinders, and I truly think it's going to be a game that comes down to the last situation.
I can see it. That's the noon game on ABC. Well, I do think we need to pay attention to SMU just a little bit. People aren't really saying much about them, but I do think we need to pay attention to SMU. They're right there with us. They're 13-14. So it would probably help us quite a bit if they would drop a game. Just saying. Georgia, UMass, well, we ain't even going to talk about that. That's going to be a bloodbath. Kentucky, Texas. Kentucky goes to Texas, 3:30 on ABC. We need that game to go. I'm going to say Texas is so far ahead of us, that game's not going to matter. I don't feel like. But if they lose that game, you talk about all hell breaking loose in the SEC, son, because then everybody's got 2 losses.
Now,
Everybody has them.
That's where the tricky situation comes up, to where they're going to say, now we need to jump the playoffs to 24 teams.
I can see it.
I mean, it's coming, man. That's how it always set up when you do these playoff situations, man. Like I even wonder, like I thought about going to look at the how the college did it with the 64 team. Was it always 64?
I think it was. You talk about basketball, the basketball tournament?
Yes.
Yeah, it was. And then they extended it to 68. So you had 2 play-in games. So man, we've talked about it before, and I do agree with you on the idea that they're going to probably expand it. And I think but if they do, they don't need to go to any more than 16. But man, they're going to do what they want to do. If they expand it though to 16 or even 18 teams, they'll end up getting rid of the conference championship games. I don't, because at that point, what good are those conference championship games? You just go by the standings, and that's one more game that somebody's going to have to play. And that kind of is also Kiffin's point behind what he said. You're out here busting your ass having to play in a conference championship game while you've got whatever team sitting at home resting, getting ready to play their first game. So it's going to get wild these last couple of weeks.
And that's the reason why I don't like the playoffs, man. I mean, I don't care about the extra games, man. I want it to go back to old school, 1 and 2 duke it out. If you lose one game, there's a chance you ain't gonna make it to the national championship game. So you got to fight to be undefeated. That's the way it should work. I mean, right now it's more of a participation trophy situation where you got 100 bowl games.
Yeah.
And that don't mean anything. That's why the kids are skipping the bowl games now.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that 100%. The next game up we need to touch on Penn State at Minnesota. Hopefully PJ Fleck is rowing the hell out of that boat at Minnesota, because we need them to beat Penn State.
That's a tough one, man. I mean, I know Penn State has been on the edge of making it to the big game every year. But in Minnesota, you just know, I mean, they always played them tough.
Yeah. It's we need that upset to happen, because I don't feel like with Penn State, they lost their big game to Ohio State. They beat a very depleted Michigan team. That's probably their next best win. They have no top 25 wins. So you drop them out, they lose a game. I feel like you can drop them out of the playoffs because their schedule does not play into their favor. Then we've got the 3:30 game, another 3:30 game on ESPN. BYU Arizona State. We kind of touched on that. Arizona State's actually favored in that game.
Really?
Yes, it is in there. It is in Tempe, Arizona State.
Okay.
They are favored by 3 at this very moment in time. I don't know. I think Arizona State gets them.
Oh yeah, that's the classic Vegas trap right there. Seeing the higher ranked team as underdog, everybody's gonna take BYU to cover or money line, and Vegas cleans house.
That's
So I'm with
it.
you. I think Arizona State gets that one then.
And here's another team that we do need to pay attention to, whether we want to or not, because they are another 2-loss team. Colorado goes to Kansas, plays the Jayhawks. Colorado is just a 2.5-point favorite, kind of like BYU was here last week to the mighty Jayhawks. And I was like, you give me BYU, they'll cover. No, Kansas is only a 2.5-point dog to the Colorado Buffs.
Hey, that's a hot team. And, if they win that game, I mean, I can see them jumping up because, that's it's an old school thing. Offense sells tickets, and then they're a sexy team right now. Everybody's talking about prime time, and that would be good publicity for sports world.
Yeah. Well, Colorado is still very much in the race for the Big 12. So that's what they were talking about. BYU, Colorado, all of them, they're still part of that. So they could get in as a conference champion.
Wow, man. I didn't even
Wild as that sounds.
like that, but now that I see that, gosh, that is yeah. So, prime time have those boys ready to play then, because if they got an opportunity, he's going to figure out a way to do it, because that's the only way his kid, Travis, is going to win the Heisman. Everybody talking about he already got the Heisman locked up. It's like, nah, I don't think he has it locked up, because he's going to have that situation where him and the quarterback are sharing votes.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's an intriguing one. Like, I feel like we've got to watch the teams that are within about 3 or 4 spots behind us and 3 or 4, maybe 5 ahead of us, and see what happens. You know what I mean? Next up, Army Notre Dame. That's the 7:00 game on NBC or Peacock. Army 9-0, Notre Dame 9-1. This is the. I wouldn't be at all surprised to see Notre Dame drop this one, because but it is in South Bend. So, but that would be one that would help us out tremendously. I don't think they would jump Army that high though. They'll put them right there about where we're at. But
that's gonna be tough, man, for to leave a 10-0 team down below, and especially with them beating the number 6 team in the country. They will have to put them in contention in the top 12 there.
Well, here's the thing. You've got them at 19. You've got Boise State on the back end of that at 12 as the 12 seed. So basically, Boise State's got a loss. Speaking of, that's the next game that we can talk about. That's 7:00 Saturday night against Wyoming. I think you would then have to flip flop Army and Boise State, man. I mean, Army is undefeated. Boise State's got 9-1, and yeah, Boise State's got an easy one this week though. They're a 23-point favorite over Wyoming. And Wyoming's 2-8. So yeah,
Yeah, their next 2 games are cakewalk. So I don't see them losing the game unless some miracle happen.
Yeah. Then the last couple games that really affect us or we need to watch, I feel like, are Alabama, Oklahoma, 7:30 ABC. Oklahoma's playing better ball now. They seem to be getting it together. They're still pretty banged up, but Alabama does have to travel to Norman, and I want to give credit to the Oklahoma fans there for our trip out there. They brought it for that game, so I would like to think they'll do the same thing for Alabama, uh, even if they feel like they're down and out, whatever. But don't sleep on that game. Don't sleep on that game. Alabama's a 13.5-point favorite, so
I'm with you there.
we need the Boomer Sooners to circle the wagons there.
Yeah, I mean, you got, like you said, they're banged up, man. That's why you haven't seen that Oklahoma team be as successful as I thought they would. But they still got a lot of kids that can play some ball, and don't count them out just yet. I mean, I can see them giving them a chance to steal that game as well.
Yes, absolutely. And then last but not least, Texas A&M and Auburn, 7:30 ESPN. Man, that's one too that we need a little help with. Texas A&M goes down to Auburn. That could change a lot. And then that also would put the situation on the table where next week Alabama and Auburn in the Iron Bowl, Auburn has to win that game to get it to be bowl eligible. So that could be those two games right there might be the most interesting games of the weekend, honestly, and have the biggest impact on us because to me, you cannot put a 3-loss Alabama team in there over a 2-loss Tennessee team. I mean, I know what you're going to say, and I would agree with you. If they can, they will. But I just at what point do you just say enough is enough on that? Like you can't. You can only force them down people's throats so much.
Exactly. I would not doubt if something like that happened where Tennessee have 2 struggle wins and they do that. I mean, because I've seen it happen, man. Here, clear example: Florida State last year. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm with you there. I'm absolutely with you there. So what three games this week do we as Tennessee fans, 3 or 4 games this week as Tennessee fans do we really need to pay attention to? I'm going to say I'll be curious to see what you think too. I'm going to say BYU and Arizona State. I think that's one of the ones that are most important. I'm going to say I'm not really worried about Army Notre Dame. I mean, that's important, but I don't feel like they're close enough to us for it to matter right now. I'm going to say Oklahoma and Alabama, the Auburn, Texas A&M games, those are important. Mm-hmm. And let's see here. What was the other one? Ole Miss, Florida. I feel like those are the 4 games we've really got to pay attention to, not because they're conference games, but because those are the teams that we're right there with. They're 2-loss teams. We went out. You cannot feasibly argue to put a 9-3 Ole Miss team over Tennessee. You can't argue feasibly, reasonably, rationally, whatever you want to say, to put a 9-3 Alabama team in over Tennessee, a team that beat Alabama. I don't feel like you could put BYU in at that point if BYU was to lose that game. I don't, because they should have lost to Utah. They got screwed in that Utah got screwed in that game. And then Texas A&M, that would help us if they lost tremendously too, just because they're right there, kind of behind us, but right there with us. And man, all hell breaks loose in the SEC if those upsets happen this weekend, because then you got to look at it like this: we've got one more conference game. Tennessee could sneak in the SEC championship game, especially if, say, Texas was to get beat by Kentucky. I mean, if you're looking at what games matter as far as a conference championship standpoint, that game matters. But those 4 games are, in my opinion, the ones that we need to watch as far as the playoffs go. What do you think?
I agree completely with everything that you said, man. Like, good. I would love to go play in this championship game.
I would too. We were just talking about how it wouldn't mean anything, but to teams like us that haven't been there in over 20 years or almost 20 years, it would matter. And it would actually help us to be there. It would be another game to be in front of everybody,
Exactly. See, everybody automatically count teams out. Like, I mean, we go to the SEC championship, you're talking about a whole different mind that these kids have now. Like,
Yes.
they already saw the fact that last week how it works, but when you go play in a neutral situation, all that's counted out because now you have totally different referees refereeing your game now.
Facts. Big facts. So, buddy, that being said, we're gonna do this the rest of the way. I like having these conversations because it's gonna change every week. Every week it's gonna change. We've got a lot to talk about. Period. Playoff football. So we'll do this again next week too for sure. That being said, though, I think we've about hashed out every scenario we need to happen this week.
Yes.
Let's put a bow on this one with the Go Vols.